Alright guys, so today what we're going to do is we're going to use our x method solving where our a coefficient is 1, and we're just going to take it a step further and solve with it, okay? So our x method factoring, I meant to say. Alright, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to follow steps 1 through 4. Alright, so let's see. Here, let's see, follow. Alright, so look in the previous notes from yesterday and you get 1 through 4 steps. Alright, so today we're going to continue. When we solve, we're going to take it one further to step 5. Let's set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. All right, so that's the step 5. So let's kind of review those steps. Step 1, okay, check to make sure it's in standard form. Step 2, look for GCF. Step 3, use your x method. Step 4, write it in factored form. And then if you're going to solve, take it one more further, set each factor equal to 0 and solve for x. All right, so you'll see here in a few examples what we're going to do. All right, so in step 5, just a little bit of a math background. We're going to use something called the zero product property, okay? And that's where we take, when you're multiplying two numbers, and the way you get a 0 for an answer when you multiply is that one of those, or maybe both, are a 0. So what we're going to do, that's why we're going to set each factor equal to 0 and then solve for x. So let's just talk real quick about the zero product property. What's math without having a little bit of a mathy term. All right, and basically we're going to take our factor 1 times our factor 2 equals 0, right? And so all that means is either our factor 1 is a 0 or factor 2 is a 0. All right, so there we go. So just applying that property to step 5, and that's how we solve. So it's going to look exactly the same way, except we're going to go ahead and take it a step further and apply the rules here. All right, so on the back side of the notes, here's your examples. All right, so for example 1, okay, first, is it in the standard form? It is, okay. Now, one thing is that usually we have a y, so to solve an equation, it has to equal 0. Remember, we want to find the x-intercepts, right? So your y value is going to be a 0, so that's why they have to equal 0. Okay, so that first step, make sure it's in standard form, is extremely important. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and solve this. Okay, it's in standard form, there's no GCF here, so I'm going to go ahead and x method this. All right, and then I've got if it helps you out, go ahead and list out your a, b, and c if you need to see those coefficients. So a here is 1, b is 3, and c is 2, and then we'll apply those. Okay, a values go here. On the bottom we have 1 times 2, of course that equals 2, and then b goes on top there. All right, so factors of 2 that add up to multiples of 2 that add up to a 3. All right, that's going to be 1 and 2. Okay, remember to reduce the fraction. All right, so our factors are 1 and 2. Okay, we're going to move on to step 4, write it in intercept form. So in this case, we're going to get x plus 1 times x plus 2 equals 0. Okay, so again, a couple of checks. Make sure this is in standard form. Right, and that must equal 0. All right, so with that being said, then we got our factors that should also equal to 0. Okay, and just to kind of allude to our steps, this is factor 1, this is factor 2, All right, and then we're going to go to step 5. Set each factor equal to 0. All right, so I'm going to have x plus 1 equals 0 and x plus 2 equal to 0. And then I'm just going to solve for each one of these here. Pretty easy solve. Minus 1 both sides. We're going to get x equal to -1. There's one answer. And then on this one, we're going to subtract 2 to both sides to get x equals -2. All right, so my answer is -1 and -2. Okay, and again, when you're doing the homework and quizzes or tests, okay, what am I looking for? Again, correctly doing the x method, okay, writing out the factored form, and then of course getting the correct answers. Okay, after you do a few of these, you may notice that if you look at factored form and then you look at the final answer, there are just opposite signs. Okay, so if you remember back when we had intercept form, okay, because of the formula having those negatives, whenever we took those numbers out, we just changed the sign. So if we look at our answer here, x plus 1 times x plus 2, right? All I did is x equals -1, or we would say before, instead of x equals, this was a standard form problem, we would say p equals -1 and q equals -2. So it's very similar when we're solving, okay? So if you notice, that's why the signs change, okay? You're solving for it, okay? Before we had a formula. So that's just a side note, okay, to what's happening there. But you may recognize that problem, but I do want to have you do it correctly and see the formal way of working this out. All right, so let's look at example 2. Okay, example 2. All right, step 1, it is not in standard form, guys. So we're gonna need to fix this here. All right, so let's see, what can we do? All right, well, we have x squared minus 14x, and then it equals a -7. So remember, guys, it needs to equal to 0. So what I'm gonna do to fix this is pretty simple. I'm just gonna add 7 to both sides, just like that. All right, so now that I've done that, on the left side I get 7x squared minus 14x plus 7. And then, of course, those cancel, leaving us with 0. So now we have it in standard form. All right, now the next thing is, step 2, check for a GCF. There is a GCF there. Let's factor out a 7. Okay, there's not an x for every term, so we can use the x. All right, divide each term by 7. Just to give us a little more room there. All right. So I'm going to factor each of these terms by 7. Okay, and then what's that going to do? 7's divide out, you get x squared. 7 goes to the -14, -2 times, so we're going to get minus 2x. And then these 7's divide out. Now remember, don't leave that off or put a 0. Remember, same over same equals 1, so it's going to be plus 1. Okay, very important. And remember, when we're done, everything should multiply back to our original equation. Okay, so now that we have this, okay, all we're going to x method is this inner part. Okay, and that's step 3. We can now x method. Okay, and remember that is still an equation. It must equal 0. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that x method real quick over here. Okay, in this case here, we have a equal to 1, b equals -2, and c equals +1. All right, so we got 1, 1, and then 1 times 1, which just equals 1, and then -2b goes on top. All right, so we need factors of 1 that add up to a -2. All right, now well, with 1, we pretty much only have one choice, 1 times 1, right? All right, but it still needs to add up to a -2, so both of these need to be a negative sign. All right, again, reduce to fraction, -1, -1. All right, and those are our factors, excuse me. Okay, so remember, guys, bring that GCF with it. Do not forget to put that in there, okay? And then we're gonna get, let's see, x minus 1 times x minus 1, all right? And that will equal, okay, 0. All right, now, before, like up here, we set each factor equal to 0, and to solve, now we have the 7 in the front. Okay, so look how we solve this. The GCF really has no effect on the problem as far as solving. Okay, so like to get rid of the 7, all I have to do is divide it out. And because we have that 0 over there, the 7's just go away. All right, so what are we left with? We're left with x minus 1 times x minus 1 equals 0, because 7 over 0 is 7 divided. 0 divided by 7 is still 0. Okay, then we're going to apply step 5, where we're going to take each fraction, each factor, and set it equal to 0. And they happen to be the same number. Okay, again, this is a double root. All right, so let's go ahead and just add 1 both sides. You get x equal to 1, plus 1, plus 1, x equal to 1. So we get 2 1s here. All right, so it's a double root. All right, not too big of a deal. All right, so there's the solution there. Okay, so what is important about this? So just to kind of illustrate here, guys, I'm gonna draw me an axis. All right, so we got x, we got y, and when we have a double root like so, let's say this is 1, right? The vertex is on that axis. Okay, quadratic looks at that, or it could open down, whatever. All right, so your x equals 1, and that's what we're looking at here. Okay, and that's what it is. When we're solving, we're just trying to find the x-intercepts. That's all that's happening here. Same thing over here. If I want to illustrate that, okay, just a quick little graph over here. Say here, x and y. All right. So on this one, we have -2 and a -1, which I need a little more negative axis this way. So let's say right here, let's say this is -2 and this is -1, right? So we're gonna have 2 intersections right here in a quadratic that does something like this, right? It just intersects there at the at those 2 points, right? So that's all we're doing when we're solving here. All right, let's look at this last example. All right, x squared plus 2x equals 0. So this is one of the ones that are real quick. There's a quick way to do this and a long way to do this, and usually it has to do with step 2 because people aren't looking for GCF, guys. Okay, please do that. Okay, this is going to be, I'm going to do it both ways just so you can see how much work I'm doing. All right, on either one. All right, so let's go ahead and just solve this out. Okay, so is it in the standard form? Yes, it's missing something. It's missing something, so I'm going to rewrite this in a way. All right, so my C is a 0, and of course we don't need to write that, but now you can see the A being C, A being 1, B being 2, and C is 0. That's all that's happening here. So real quick, let's do the easy way. Okay, step 2. Okay, step 1, it is in standard form. Step 2, is there GCF? And yes, there is. And most people are looking for the number, and they would say no. But since there's no C term, both terms have an x, and we can factor out an x. All right, so I'm gonna put x here, and we're gonna divide each one by x. Right? Okay. Okay, x squared divided by x. Okay, numerator minus the denominator as far as the powers go. So that is going to divide out this x, leaving with x here. Okay, and then these x's divide out, leaving plus 2. All right, so you got x times x plus 2 equals 0. All right, now what to recognize here is that that's factor 1, and this here is factor 2. So when I go to solve this, set them equal to 0, factor 1 equal to 0, then x plus 2 equal to 0, which is factor 2. Okay, this is done. You don't have to, can't solve anymore there. So x is equal to 0, that's 1 x-intercept. Then subtract 2 both sides on this one. X equals -2, and there is our second value. All right, so not a big deal. However, if you totally missed that step, okay, we're already done. We jump from step 2 to step 5. Okay, if you missed that and you put the 0 there, you can still X method this. It's not a big deal. All right. So, okay, A value is 1 on both sides, and then on the bottom, 1 times C, which is 1 times 0. Of course, that just equals 0, and then 2 on top. So we need factors of 0 that add up to a 2, and that's pretty easy. 0 and 2. Okay, reduce the fraction, 0, 2. and then write it out. So we're going to have basically x plus 0 times x plus 2 equals 0. Okay. So of course we don't need that x plus 0, so if we clean this up a little bit, it's going to look like this. All right. And again, you do the same thing to solve. It's going to work out both ways. We'll take it from here, and then we'll get these results right there. All righty, guys.